Hello, class. I have put together a short review of solving general equations. Hopefully, if we put everything together, it'll take some of the confusion away of when to use quadratic formula, when do you isolate variable, when do you factor, how does everything come together. So I want to take us all the way back to the beginning and start with a very simple equation. X plus 4 equals 12. If you see just one x, whether it's x squared, any of it, you can isolate the variable. So remember the degree, x to the first, tells you how many solutions you're going to have. I expect one solution. Subtract 4 from both sides, x is equal to 8. One solution, I'm done. Okay, moving on. We're going to make it x squared plus 4 equals 12. There's still just one variable, x squared. It's a degree of 2, so I expect 2 answers. I have the single variable, so I can still isolate the variable. Right? Subtract the 4, just like before. Now it's x squared equals 8. How do you undo a square? Take the square root. That's the extra step we need to do that we didn't do before. X is equal to positive 8 square roots of 8 and negative square roots of 8. There's your two solutions. Now remember with square roots, just like fractions, you have to reduce them. So I'm going to start to factor tree. Right? In the past, we took them all the way to prime numbers. I'm going to tell you it's the same as square root of 4 times the square root of 2. Once you see a square root, you can recognize the square root of 4. You can stop there. Square root of 4 is 2, leaving radical 2 on the inside. So my two solutions are positive 2 square roots of 2 and negative 2 square roots of 2. Okay? Okay, to the next type of problem. X squared plus 4x equals 12. I now have the variable appears twice, 2 different degrees. The degree of the polynomial is still a 2, so I expect 2 answers. I cannot isolate the variable. Do not factor the x out of the equation. It doesn't do any good. What I can do is begin the next process. Can we factor? Right? Our choices to solve is either factor or use the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula works every time. Factoring works some of the times. Right? So for this particular problem, I want you to practice your quadratic formula. All right, it is x equals opposite of b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac, all of it over 2a. All right, in order to get a, b, and c, come back up here to the top. I need to take that positive 12 and subtract it. I have x squared plus 4x minus 12 equals 0. A is 1, b is 4, c is negative 12. So I want you to plug those into the equation, go ahead and push pause, and begin to simplify. When you're finished, check your answer with mine. All right, in my quadratic formula, I've got it set up here. Everything in blue I just type into the calculator. I get that it's 64. I know the square root of 64 is 8. So the quadratic formula breaks down to -4 plus 8 over 2, -4 minus 8 over 2. That's where I get a +2 and a -6. Those are my two solutions. Okay, let's look at the next problem. We'll see this again and we'll factor, and you'll see that you get the exact same answer. In the next problem, however, we have a cube. I cannot just right away go to quadratic formula. Right. The first thing I need to look at, again, remember to solve, you can factor or quadratic formula. If you don't isolate the variable, these are your two choices: factor, quadratic formula. I've already said that I can't use this because I have a cube. So let's look at factoring. Is there a greatest common factor? Well, yes. Everything up here has an x in it. Okay, before I pull that out, bring the 12x to the left-hand side. Minus 12x equals 0. Okay, pull out the GCF, which is an x. I now have x times x squared plus 4x minus 12. Anytime you have an x, make sure it's in parentheses. All right. Each group of parentheses, set them equal to 0 and solve. Remember here, I've got a cube, so you expect to find 3 solutions. Here's one solution, x equals 0, right here. The next solution, take the group of parentheses, x squared plus 4x minus 12 equals 0, and go back through. Can you factor? Can you use quadratic formula? Yes, you could use either one. So let's do factoring this time. What multiplies to give you -12 and adds to give you 4? I'm going to use 6 and -2. Remember, whatever your sign is on the middle term, that's going to be your largest factor. The largest factor is positive, the smaller is negative. Put them in parentheses, x plus 6, x minus 2 equals 0. Set each group of parentheses equal to 0, and I get -6 and +2. Those are your other two answers. Take a look back for a moment at our previous example where we did quadratic formula, and you can see you got the same answers, 2 and -6. It's just a lot faster to factor. That's why we have two choices. Okay, so now let's look at the next problem. X squared minus 64. Go ahead and push pause. Think about how would you go about solving this problem, and then check your answer. Okay, you had two choices. I've said in the beginning, if x is all by itself, there's no double x's, you can isolate the variable, which is what I did in green. I got positive and -8. Or, once again, you can go back to factor. X squared minus 64, this is the difference of squares. You factored it into x plus 8, x minus 8, set each equal to 0, and you get the exact same problem, or answer. You could also have done quadratic formula. Just to show you how it ties together, there's x squared, 0x minus 64. There's your a term is 1, your b term is 0, and your C term is negative 64. If you did that in quadratic formula, you'd get the exact same answer. Okay? Whichever way is easiest for you to work. All right, let's look at the next problem. X cubed minus 64. Okay. If I isolate the variable, the calculator is going to give me one answer. If I isolate the variable, add 64, you would take the cube root, right? And x would be equal to 4. However, remember, if your degree is a 3, you should expect 2 more solutions. And that's what I need to get. So I can't simply isolate the variable to get all 3 answers. What I have to do then, just like before, go back to factor. I can't use quadratic formula. Because it's an x cubed. So factoring, that was the equation I gave you in lesson 6.4, where it was a plus b, it's a minus b, because we have a minus sign. So change that. Times a squared plus 2, plus ab, I get this right. AB plus b squared. Okay, again, if you're not sure about that formula or how to use it, look back at lesson 6.4. Okay, so let's factor this. To find the cube root, a is equal to x and b is equal to 4. So putting this in, I have x minus 4 times x squared plus 4x plus 16. All right, set each group of parentheses equal to 0 and solve. X is equal to 4. There's that 4 solution. This part, my quadratic equation, is going to give me the other 2 solutions. It is not factorable, so you have to use quadratic formula. Go ahead and push pause. I want you to fill it out and then check your answer. All right, in the quadratic formula, I've got it set up here. The green part, I typed in the calculator and got negative 48. Factor the 48 into 16 times 3. Square root of 16 is 4. That's where I get the 4i square roots of 3 right here. Everything reduces by 2, the 4, and the 2, which gives me my other 2 answers, negative 2 plus 2i radical 3, negative 2 minus 2i radical 3. That's why they don't show up in the calculator, because they're imaginary numbers. But that gives me all 3 solutions. So again, don't forget about the x equals 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there's one more problem to go over. Not that one, this one. X to the 4th minus x squared minus 12. So what do I do when I have the 4th power? Can't isolate the variable. Our next step is to look at factor. I'm going to factor using the shortcut just as if it was x squared minus x minus 12. Right? What multiplies to give you negative 12 and adds to give you negative 1. I'm going to do 4 and 3. My sign here is a negative, so the largest number is negative, the smallest number is positive. The difference now between x to the 4th and x squared is that I have x squared minus 4 and x squared plus 3. Okay, go ahead and push pause and finish factoring. Set h trim equal to 0 and solve.